right, we solved our AV issues, so appreciate everybody's patience. The time is 6:05 p.m. I'm calling to order a regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Sunset Valley, Texas for Tuesday, July 15th, 2025. And it's good to see everyone after our summer break. I appreciate getting the extra time off. I'm sure staff did too. So just as a note, we are going to start with public comments. I will ask folks that if you plan to speak to item 14 later, please wait for your comments on that issue until we actually get to that agenda item. If you cannot speak or cannot wait till that time, please feel free to do so now at public comments. And also as a reminder, people are limited to 4 minutes, and we'll be keeping track of that because we do have a lot of people that have asked to speak, especially for the later items. So this time we're going to open up for public comments. Again, if you are planning on speak later, then please wait until that time. It'll just help us make sure that we get through our early agenda items in time and we can spend the appropriate time for that item. So this time, if anybody wishes to speak to address council for the public comments, please step up to the podium. All right, please go ahead.
Good evening. Susan Durso, 6 Pillow Road, and I am speaking on 14, but that's because I'm not hanging around for y'all to talk about it. I understand that the only issue before us today is impervious cover. And the site plan that's been proposed has a lot of issues that impact impervious cover, and that's in a very critical area of water, which is why it's the critical water zone, right? So I really hope that, as y'all know, I've been on the Board of Adjustments for many, many years. These are not the types of variances that come before us. However, I have a lot of experience listening to applicants. I did raise the issue with the city attorney so that it can be corrected. The applicant right now may or may not have authority by the owner of the property to submit the application. So the record's not clear on that, and I mentioned it to her so y'all can clarify that because the property is actually owned by an LC and the application is signed by an individual that shows no indication of authority. That doesn't mean he doesn't have authority, doesn't mean he's not in fact the sole owner of the LC. It's just not clear from the record, so that's why I bring that up. The record needs to be appropriately documented so that we have, no matter what decision you make, we have the appropriate person making the application, be that a legal person as an individual, a legal person as an LC. So I just bring that up for your attention. But I'm concerned about the impervious cover because it is in a critical water zone. I have watched this creek many times, and I know we've done a lot of improvements on the creek bed over the years, but I am concerned about a fence being along that. I'm concerned about water runoff. I'm concerned about debris getting caught up, and I'm very concerned about what the impervious cover would do to the properties around it. I'm not sure that the record that I've seen satisfies me in any way that those things have been properly mitigated. That's all I really want to say. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, if anybody else wishes to speak during public comments, please step up to the podium.
Check. I also
Please state your name and
my
address.
name is Ian. I am a resident of 8 Sunset Trail. I would like to thank the lady from Pillow. I see a lot of residents here who are on Sunset Trail and Reese, which are the homes and properties that are directly affected by everything that happens upstream. So I'd like to thank I forgot her name, the woman from Pillow, who eventually when things back up, they're backed up against our homes, our properties. So yes, this is supposed to be about impervious cover, not about light pollution or noise pollution or increased traffic or any of the other things that we're not talking about tonight. But there's a reason why that house is not there. I moved in 10 years ago. That home was had about 4.5, 5 feet flood marks on it. And that my home, fortunately, did not get flooded, but it did have mega damage. My neighbor across the street, my neighbor catty corner, and the majority of neighbors to the south of me on my street get flooded. Those of us, I'm in the critical flood zone, and those of us in that zone, I don't even know why we're having this meeting, because it's been brought up to me that we, in the critical flood zone, have no increased impervious cover, period. I thought that was kind of a done deal. Now, if you're up out of that impervious cover zone and you want to build yourself a tennis court or a pool or a palapa or whatever, then you do that. Realize that that affects all of us, those of us in that impervious or that critical flood zone. Everything that happens upstream from us impacts us. And to have, almost 13,000 square feet of tennis court on top of a home, a pool, a concrete parking pad, not to mention the fences, which will also be blocking, debris. Well, that's just asking for my home to be flooded and to the homes around me to be increasingly flooded. I, again, don't know how we're having this conversation right now. I don't know that if it's all right to ask if the people who are representing or who are asking for this variance are even here, but I think that would speak volumes if they aren't, because we live here. It seems to me that this is a clubhouse, I've heard that they tried to do this in their hometown of Westlake or whatever, couldn't do it. I wonder why. Because no one wants it. Whether it's 2 tennis courts or 6 pickleball courts, it's an issue. And there's a reason why they don't have it, and there's a reason why we don't want it. So the people who live here, who are impacted by it, every time it rains, we're always watching. We're watching out for each other. And there's been times when people have gotten pulled out of their homes in the middle of the night, and this is just increasing that likelihood. And again, really the root of the matter is, why are we even having this discussion? So, thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak at this time? Go ahead and step up to the podium if you wish to speak and state your name.
Hi, greetings everybody. I'm Bridget Lednicki and I live at 15 Reese. And my daughters and I moved in there back in 2011. Tom Lednicki, my husband, has lived there since 1999. So I had to speak because I've just come to really love Sunset Valley. And I'm not a fan of our house, which my husband can tell you. And one of the main reasons is because of the flooding. Early on when we moved in at about 4 a.m. on October, we had to evacuate. You're talking me, my husband, our rescue dogs, our chickens, our rescue snake, our rescue guinea pig. And, we had to find some place to go at 4 in the morning. And it was very scary to deal with all of that. And that's always been a concern every time, especially as things build up around us, with the impervious coverage and everything like that. And of course, current events that we're seeing came about around us. I've just, since I've lived here, really come to embrace the Sunset Valley values, loving nature, loving green space, neighbors, being neighborly and stuff like that. So I really believe that. And in fact, we recently decreased our impervious coverage. We took out a lot of the concrete that was around our pool. A lot of people probably saw all that. And so, I mean, we take it very seriously. And it's not just us and our flooding. You know, we had water in our home. We had to do a bunch of remodeling in one part. In fact, we actually had them come and pour concrete into the house through a window to raise it up. So, you know, we wouldn't get that again and have to redo carpeting and drywall and all that stuff. I'm just really concerned about the fencing, just the safety. Again, the traffic that goes through there. We've seen them come and grow, like Ez and a lot of other people come and grow, and now we just have a whole new slew of little kids. And it's really dangerous with the speeding. And not just the residents, they're really usually pretty good, but we just get a lot of, you know, all the FedEx and all our new mail carrier and stuff like that. So I really worry about the safety of our children and just the quality of life. I really like the dark skies. We've had a lot of stuff going here that embraces the dark skies. We've had all kinds of stuff here. We love it. There's nothing I love more than going out on my back patio and just enjoying the full moon and the stars. So I really like the dark skies. And I'm sorry, this is just like the gentleman before me. I just can't believe why we're having this discussion. It's absolutely ridiculous. It doesn't really follow to anything I've come to know for Sunset Valley. You know, everybody's always praised us for being such a wonderful place. And, you know, we show that. We show that on our new signs, the sun, the greenery, and all that other kind of stuff. And the other thing is the noise. Noise travels, and it's different. And I know people have complained about Miss Drinkwine's place and the VRBO, and we're just a couple houses down. And I'll tell you what, it's never bothered me. It's never bothered me. There may be a little bit of traffic. There's a blind hill. I've grilled it into my kids about being careful with that blind hill and the way the parking is, even on trash day and stuff like that. But I just can't imagine the noise with tennis courts and pickleball and people at whatever that house is gonna be, the music and all the traffic and everything like that. So I just, again, like the gentleman in front of me, I don't know why we're having this discussion, you know, why it's even being considered. I mean, we have our rules, especially with the impervious coverage, but just, if that's not gonna be somebody's resident and they're gonna start bringing it in specifically for it to be either just a business or for something that they can't do in their own hometown, and then I'm not for it. Thank you.
Thank you. And also, just as a reminder, if you are planning to speak to a later item, please go ahead and submit a card. That way that we can keep track of the folks who are here, and we're going to be using those cards to have people speak first and then going to anybody who didn't submit a card that wants to speak to. So at this time, if there's any more public comments, please go ahead and step up to the podium. Otherwise, if you're able to stay to the later agenda items, please hold back your comments till then. All right, we're going to go ahead and proceed with the rest of our agenda, starting with agenda item number 3, and that's staff reports. We'll begin with the administration report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to try to keep this brief. We have a heavy agenda. Jerry, in a moment, we'll be doing a GovBuilt permitting software demo for Council and the public. I'm glad we have a lot of residents here that can check out our new permitting software. The FY23 audit, the final field work has been completed by the auditors, so the ball is really in their court now. I just wanted to remind the Mayor and Council that Kyle did send a form that he would like you to fill out, so if you've not completed that, please try to get that back to him as quickly as possible. Jerry and I will also be giving a legislative update in a moment, and I'll answer any questions regarding the admin report.
Any questions for the city administrator before we hand it over for the demos? All right, thanks, Matt.
I'm more of a mouse guy than a touchpad guy, so. Yeah. Okay, so Mayor and Council, Jerry Rustovan, Development Services Manager. As you know, we have recently switched our permitting portal or software from what My Permit Now, which we've been using since the pandemic, to a new system called GovBuilt. We have spent quite a while working with the company to try to personalize the software individual to our needs. That has taken longer than we'd hoped, but we did launch on June 1st of this year. So I'm going to walk you through two things real quick. One, show you kind of what a resident would see or an applicant who was submitting a plan through the portal. And then secondly, show you what I see as a city staff member when I'm looking at things. So this is the landing page. The address, in case anyone's curious, is sunsetvalleytx.govbuild.com. So a person would go to this website, they would create their account, and if they wanted to file, for example, a building permit, they would come down here to the building permit button, and they would type in their address. And I'm just going to type in a known address, not submitting anything for real. So 21 Lone Oak Trail, for instance. Hit search, and then it uses the city's GIS program to automatically pull up the information for that, the owner, etc. So we click on that. And then the person would go through basically the same thing as the paper form, but an electronic form. What type of permit you're applying for, property evaluation, description of the work, what your legal description is, your subdivision, which we'll be talking about later tonight, name, contact information, contractor information, or if you have an agent doing the work. And then you come down here, you click a bunch of boxes, allowing the city to inspect the property, et cetera, et cetera. You sign it, fill in this form, you hit submit. And then to go over to the page that I would see, which is right here, which would then come up with a set of dashboards. I can do this as a list or what they call cards. And this is an application that was submitted today, that actually approved today, rather simple Tesla charger. But you can see it, that gives me all the information that the person received, that they submitted with the form. So, you know, it tells me the address, their names, their contact information. It gives me a copy of their application, which would be right here. And then with their application, you know, they're doing a $500 Tesla charger. It's mechanical, I'm sorry, it's electrical work. Their address, the plat, make sure they have a plat, which is required. And then down here, we'll have, I'm sorry, there's somewhere. The information that they uploaded with the plan. So more than just filling out a form, you have to upload the plans. Again, in this case, rather easy, it's a Tesla charger, but this is the information that they submitted beyond the form. So I reviewed this information earlier today, determined to comply with all the codes, and what I did was I changed the status of the application to pending permit, pending payment, sorry, because I approved the review. And what happens is it goes through each one of these, I think chevrons they call them, when I change the status. So the initial status is submitted, it goes to under review, review complete. If there's back and forth involved, applicant. In this case, I jumped it straight to pending payment because it was that simple. And so what happens is the program automatically sends an email to the applicant informing them that they have a payment due, and here's how to pay. So I'll show you that right. So here it is. So earlier today, this gentleman from this Faraday Electric Company received this email automatically. I didn't have to do anything. That says, your case is now ready for payment. Click here to pay. Then I'll receive a notice that says he paid, and then I will turn around, click on chevrons up here, and change it to permit issued, and he can go ahead and look at the permit in the portal. He'll receive an email saying the permit's ready. Click here to print it, and that completes the process. So For us, it's a great improvement over the other one. The other software we had, which I don't think we're using totally to its ability, but nonetheless, frankly, it's a piece of software that was created by a government in southeastern Louisiana. Was very inexpensive, but it was also very limited in functionality. All the things you see here on the left-hand side of the screen are all customizations the staff can do to the forms, to the processes, to the emails, et cetera, et cetera. And the amount, frankly, is somewhat overwhelming, which is part of why it took us so long to create the software. But our intention is to, we paid once for the software, we pay a yearly license fee, we have free technical support, and then we can pay extra for additional levels of support. But what we can also do with this program is actually create new forms and processes in-house and not have to use the company to do those additional processes. So we plan on expanding the use, for example, for STR licensing, for the police alarm permits. These are all simple things that we can do using the software without having to go back to the company to tell them to ask them to do it for us. Now, if we do something very complicated, we may do that. We actually have a year free of unlimited, I always said tech support, but additional level of support to create new processes. But one thing I really like about this software is that it allows us to build the software out additionally as we go along. It has been used for about 45 days now. I will say we're still working out a few kinks. I think that would be expected with any brand new software package. One complication, for example, is Sunset Valley has a whole lot of fee types. Like I would say too many fee types, too many discretion fee types. And so sometimes I have to go in like I did in this case and actually hand enter the permit fee rather than the software figuring it out myself, which I would prefer. But we're still working a little bit on how to sort some things by case number, for instance. But these are things I'll be reaching out to the support staff there and try to figure out. So far it's been working pretty well. I've only had one complaint from a citizen. They submitted 2 applications, watershed and a building permit for some reason. And they kept trying to pay for the building permit today. I kept kicking them over to the watershed development permit, so I need to figure out why that is. So far, everyone that I know of has been able to submit their plans, and we've received them. So the most important thing it does is automate things. That before we had a lot of have to go into the portal to see if anything new got submitted today, and then take a bunch of steps, and then rely upon email communications back and forth between me and the inspection team, me and the review team. And this handles that all automatically. It does notifications still via email to let you know, hey, something happened, like the inspector completed an inspection. I get an email saying, you completed an inspection. I go to the portal, I go, okay, they passed their electric inspection. But it automates a lot of stuff that we used to do before via email and telephone.
Great. Thank you very much. Council, do you have any questions? Councilmember Johnson?
I had one resident reach out that had been using it and it had the wrong property owners. How can that be? I think you said in the beginning it's like, does it come from the GIS?
Yeah, that's an issue with the city's internal GIS and linking it to the TCAT information.
Okay.
There's obviously a disconnect there between the TCAT and the city's GIS.
But is that something that city staff can change easily enough?
Yeah, we're working on. We hired a company to actually help us with the GIS program and updating it and bringing it, making it more robust.
Okay. Thank you.
There's also the ability to, not easily, unfortunately, but you can provide that and just come from the address. But it wants to do it automatically, and that's why your person contacting you right in the problem.
Okay, and sorry, one more question. The other problem was like seeing outstanding permits, but I think you did that right in the beginning. That one was already created, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what you did, and so we saw that functionality. That's it, thank you.
Councilor Rosengart?
How many cases do you handle a month?
It varies. I think we started the renumbering system over with our new software, but I think we got up to, we're at about 240, 250 when we shut down My Permit Now, and that would have been over 2 years.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for showing the software, and we'll now hand it over to the legislative updates. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mayor. Bring the slides over. So, So the legislative session, the regular legislative session is over. The legislature is about to go into special session called by the governor. So Texas Municipal League, the TML, which we are a member of, does a very great job of keeping an eye on the legislature and tracking bills that are related to cities. So over 9,000 bills were filed at this session. TML was tracking over 2,000 bills, so 24% of the bills filed affected cities. 260 of those tracked bills that TML was tracking affected cities actually passed. So one that I'm going to highlight bills that affect Sunset Valley. This one we're already putting into practice. So there was changes to the open meeting notice. So it used to be 72 hours. Now it is 3 business days before the scheduled date of the meeting. And we were already kind of used to this as far as council goes. The goal was to always have the agenda and agenda packet posted by Thursday. However, now that it's going to be a requirement, so long as Monday is not a federal or city holiday. Another thing is there's new notice requirements about the budget. Again, we don't have a property tax, but the proposed budget must be clearly, you must have a physical copy ready, or the proposed budget must be clearly accessible on the homepage of the city website. So this is effective September 1st, but we've already started putting this into practice. The 3 business day notice requirement. This is something just related to, this is something new to me. So anytime we amend, or if we ever get a new contract with Texas Disposal System or another solid waste management service, we just have to publish that notice and make that a public notice. This is one that definitely affects us, and I will be hopefully taking this to the Budget and Finance Committee for them to discuss, but the state has raised the competitive bidding threshold from 50,000 to 100,000, so I'm hopeful that we can amend our financial policies to reflect the new threshold for that. So I'll be taking that to the Budget and Finance Committee, and hopefully we can get a recommendation to again raise that threshold of competitive bidding. This is a bill of passive note. It doesn't affect us because we don't have a property tax. However, there is a stipulation that your financial audit is supposed to be completed 6 months after the end of the fiscal year, 180 days. As we've discussed with you, we've had some issues with the FY23 audit. We're very behind, given we had the financial software conversion and the loss of data with our old financial software. The legislature discussed there was no real way for cities to be punished if they didn't complete their audits in time. So the state adopted this, that the Attorney General can determine that if a city has not completed their audit within 180 days after the last day of the fiscal year, the city may not adopt a property tax rate that exceeds the current rate. But we don't have a property tax rate. However, again, staff's goal is to get these audits. We're going to get through the FY23 audit and then hopefully get caught up so that we're completing our audits in a timely manner. So, and then Jerry's going to talk about some planning related bills that would definitely affect Sunset Valley. However, we were bracketed out. Do you want to, or I can talk about it, or do you want to?
Sure, I'll go ahead.
Okay, so, yeah.
Okay, so Mayor, Council, there were several bills this session that raised some concern to the community about how they would fix Sunset Valley. As Matt said, we were bracketed out. In other words, conditions were put in the bill that this bill only applies to cities that meet certain conditions. A very common one is a county over 300,000 in a city with a population between X and Y. It's interesting because I think technically under the Texas Constitution, bracketing is illegal, and yet many bills are bracketed. So a lot of these bills are aimed at some of the larger cities in Texas that maybe are a little bit bluer than the legislature, and that's why they create these brackets. So they do not apply in the more rural and suburban areas of the city, but they will apply to specifically places like San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, and Austin. 2 bills that raised concern here were one that affected the minimum lot size. As y'all know, the Sunset Valley has a 1 acre minimum lot size. There was a bill that would take lot size down to 3,000 square feet. It was originally 2,500 square feet. That bill passed. It does not apply to us because we're not bracketed. It also does not apply to the city of Austin, by the way, because the city of Austin already has a smaller minimum lot size than this state mandated law right here. The second one has to do with building on commercially owned property, commercially zoned property. That bill would specifically allow for residential, aka multifamily, to be built on property zoned commercial. Right now in Sunset Valley, in most cities, you cannot do that. In Austin, you can do it with a mixed-use overlay. Austin recently changed their code to allow residential in any property zoned commercial. This state law basically would mimic the Austin law. Again, the city of Sunset Valley is outside of the bracket, so it does not apply to Sunset Valley. One thing, though, that Matt and I wanted to mention was that if you look at the history of municipal legislation in Texas as it applies to, well, cities, of course, one thing that will happen is a bill will pass in a certain session. It'll be a little controversial. The state will bracket it, the legislature will bracket it as it goes through the legislative process, and then many legislators are able to tell their constituents, don't worry about it, this only applies to San Antonio, or this only applies to the Big Four and Big Five municipal cities in Texas. And then a session or two later, the law may be amended to either change the brackets or strip the brackets out altogether. A great example of this is annexation law. Texas used to have a rather liberal annexation policy, I think to make up for, frankly, the lack of financial support for cities from the state of Texas, unlike other states. Therefore, cities were liberally able to expand their boundaries as development occurred to bring in tax base to make up for that fact, was kind of the underlying thought. And then maybe 2-3 sessions ago, they really cracked down on annexation. You know, it had to be approved by the people being annexed. There was disannexation, et cetera, et cetera. And you know, the story at the time was, oh, don't worry, this only applies to the large cities. Well, the next session they came back and they stripped out the brackets. And so now it does apply to Sunset Valley. To us, it's somewhat irrelevant because we're not going to annex anything. You know, we're totally surrounded by Austin. But that's an example of something that at one time was bracketed, don't worry about it, but later the brackets were taken away. So, of course, this session, this issue is not on the special session right now. I don't anticipate it will be. That has a tendency to be different types of issues on special sessions. But we just kind of want to raise your attention to the fact that the bills that you may have heard about do not apply, but there's no guarantee that in future sessions that they will not.
We wanted to highlight so we can answer any questions, but there's also in the backup in the admin report, there are links to a document from the American Planning Association that Jerry has access to as a member of that organization, and then also the full report from Texas Municipal League. So,
Any follow-up questions from council? All right, thank you for that overview. We'll move on then to our Public Works report.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council, and all the members of the public. It's nice to see everybody here tonight. I've been just highlight a few items from the Public Works report. So, City Hall backyard, as we're still working hard on that. We'll be, I think, tomorrow starting installing some of the curbing that goes around the playgrounds. And after we get all the trails, a lot of the trails built, we'll be installing the shade cloths. A lot of the structure is already up. We've been working on a lot of water-related things. Everybody should have got a copy of the water quality report, or at least a flyer or something to link you to that so that you could see what the status of water quality is for 2024. We send that out every year. We also met with TCEQ last week to do our comprehensive compliance investigation, which is something we do every 3 years. We send them about 700 pages of records, and then they come out and do some samples, and then they just review everything to let us know how we're doing. One thing I didn't put in the report, just want to remind everybody, we do have a new citizen portal. It uses the same links as before, but now you actually can drop pictures in, and there's maps, and you can use a map and all sorts of things. So if anybody has any requests, just hit that little megaphone click over there, and you can submit a request. You'll also get email updates when things change. So I can put a public response on and say what's going to happen with that request, or if there's any questions about that. And I would say we had one person who submitted a request that just said, "What's going on here?" So having pictures is worth a lot when you do that. So yeah, it's a much more, I think, robust system than what we had before. So yeah, make sure to use that. If it is an emergency, when you click on that submit a request button, if it's something that needs immediate attention, like water spewing out of the ground, there's something like a really big hazard, we're gonna ask you to call non-emergency dispatch for Travis County so we can get that addressed right away. We don't wanna wait for an email for that. The other thing I wanted to bring up is we have a new floodplain website, and this is called Forerunner. And this is a site that you can search for your flood information. And so we can put in an address. 9 Reese. You can click on the address and it's going to come up with the firm. I'd go ahead and you can kind of zoom out a little bit. So it's in flood zone AE, which is the 100-year floodplain. The hatched area is your floodway. You can also come down here to the little stack and you can turn off the flood layer and go to custom layers, and you can turn on all the water quality zones instead to look at that. So those are all available for anybody to use. If we go back, if we have, so one of the things that's a real reason for this is that a lot of people live in the special flood hazard areas. If you go down, you can see where it says overview, records, files. So when we get elevation certificates for houses that are built in the floodplain, those elevation certificates will be available online for people to be able to see. If you go to records and go to inspections, because I did this one today, you can get your impervious cover inspection. That we're still putting these in. We only have a couple in right now. So it'll tell you, like, you know, how much impervious cover that the city currently has on record for this, for your property. And will also, when you go down to notes, tell you a little bit about some of the regulations on, you know, what the existing impervious cover is, if it's in the floodway and floodplain, and if it needs to go to council for a variance, or how you would get, you know, be able to build and develop a property. So I think I actually have the elevation certificate is in for 25 Sunset. So that one is, you can actually type in 25 Sunset, and I think if you go to files they see the elevation certificates available. So this is the front end that the public can see and can explore. You can also send requests in and ask us to do things that way. A lot of times when people are looking to develop, they get a floodplain determination letter. Those are all going to be available online. You can actually see those and what the floodplain determination is. The other thing is that we're able to keep a log. So one of the reasons that's important is because the city participates in the community rating system, which helps everybody in the floodplain lower your flood insurance rate. And so we have to keep a log of every time we talk to somebody about a property in the floodplain and things like that, so that it's all in one place. So that is the Forerunner, and we're hoping that, you know, everybody can use that to kind of, very handy, especially for, you know, realtors and people like that who are kind of, when people want to sell their house. So that is the Public Works report for now, and if there's any questions about anything else in the report, I'd be happy to answer those questions.
Mayor Pro Tem.
This is a real small thing, but I wanted to thank the Public Works, all the folks in Public Works, and probably Officer Brownlow too, for, I now see that there is a gate at the end of Valley Creek Park.
There is,
which has a nice rustic look and is narrow enough to make it difficult for somebody to get a bike through.
Yes.
And that will help preserve that trail, so thank you very much.
Yes, you're welcome. That was completed, I believe, yesterday. They finished that up. And actually, I mean, we had some requests before, but somebody also sent that in through the citizen portal, so we were able to clear that out. So,
Councilor Johnson.
Just a quick note, the new portal for like 311, whatever, is great. If you don't share your location, it defaults to Kansas City. But it's like Sunset Valley.
You got to share your
whatever.
location.
So can they set that for us?
Do what?
Can they change like the default location for us?
So you have to actually set it on your computer, because when they show up, it's a thing having to do with your computer. I don't know why it does that, because we did the same thing when we first pulled it on. We're like, hey, why does it do this? But you have to allow your location to share through your thing. I can double check with them and see if they can
Yeah, they should
change
just default
that.
to Sunset Valley.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't share your exact location.
Yeah, so I can talk to them about that, but yeah.
It's really cool though.
Yeah, and you
Just-
can
those
look
just
up
like-
your request and stuff like that, so it makes it really easy,
Yeah,
so.
awesome.
Yeah, thank you. That's an improvement just from being able to pinpoint areas, you know, where things are located for attention. Other comments or questions for Public Works? All right, we'll move on to our last staff report, which is Public Safety.
Good evening, everybody. I'll just cover one item so we can get to the item that you're all here for. I'll cover the city cameras, the flock cameras that Sunset Valley has. I don't know if you've seen in the news, but there's been a lot of coverage about these license plate reader cameras. So in an effort to avoid this about the cameras, I wanted to take a deep dive with our Public Safety Committee, talk about what the cameras are, where they are, what they do. We covered all the controversy about the cameras. At the end of the meeting, it lasted about an hour. At the end of the meeting, the committee recommended that the police department be as transparent as we can with the cameras. That would mean having a monthly report of how often we use that information, some case information on like what did we accomplish with the cameras that much, an audit, and then make public the people who we share that license plate information with. We're going to do all that. We'll also keep meeting about these cameras to gauge the residents' response to them, but we'll be posting all that information on our website, and we'll keep it current each month, as well as at the Public Safety Committee meetings. We'll just be as transparent as we can. If they want more, we'll provide that as well. The police department really thinks they're a valuable tool, but we certainly want the public to trust in our use of those cameras. So keep an eye out for that on the website, and we'll continue to share that information. One more thing, since I have you all here, October 7th is National Night Out. I think we're gonna have a grand opening of the park that night as well. So look forward to seeing you all there, and I hope we get a big turnout. Thank you.
All right, questions for Public Safety? Councilmember Burrell.
Issue, we're getting here a lot of just quick overnight camping along by Coles and along the highway there and behind some of the shopping centers. We haven't had any really big camps lately. I did notice that they've cleaned out the kind of large camp on 45 over this week. But our main issue here in Sunset Valley will be these individual campers that they don't really try to hide, they just pop up overnight. The officers are pretty good about finding them, and generally residents or either the business owners are really quick to call before they start to have multiple residents at the campsites. But it's an ongoing issue. I mean, we're always aware and we're always looking for violations. Same with panhandling and that kind of thing. We try to put a stop to it before it grows in the city.
Any other questions? Councilmember Johnson.
I see it listed, but the gunshots over off of Westgate, have we made any?
Not yet. It is, I mean, especially over 4th of July weekend, there was a lot of gunshots. We've been getting reports for the past month from residents off of Jones that late at night, they're hearing gunshots, mostly east of Westgate, and there were bullet casings and found near near his house. One resident. Yeah, so there are gunshots being fired in the area. If you look at APD's calls, that's normal. I mean, there always are gunshots around here, but for our residents to hear them, within their hearing range is unusual for us, but we're still looking. I will have a report for the next public safety meeting on all of Austin PD's calls related to gunshots fired, within a couple of miles of here. But there'll be a lot of calls for shots fired. That's a pretty common call.
It sounds like someone just target practicing at like 3 a.m., whatever. And so if they're gonna do that, like, and not have someone called directly on, it's gotta be where that camp used to be, you know, that piece of property. Like, I guess we could just walk in there and look for signs of,
Could be over in there, but I'll show you. There's a lot of gunshot calls are
yeah.
a dime a dozen in a urban area like this, so. But we'll take a look at how close they are here, because Austin residents are around us, or someone or some people are firing guns overnight in this area. But it'll be up to us, Sunset Valley PD, to probably try to
Yeah.
put the nexus together, because
Yeah.
it's such a common call for Austin.
I appreciate it.
Any other questions for public safety? Councilmember Rosengard.
I see that on June 30th, your meeting regarding Jones Road traffic issues, are you guys coming to a resolution?
No, not really, to be honest with you. The school year's coming up. We'll meet with the people at Sunset Valley Elementary as early as possible. We did have some improvement towards the end of the school year. Our best bet is if we can take off from where we were at the end of the school year last year, instead of starting all over like we do every year with some of the chaos that occurs there along Jones. So we're going to work with the school district. They do have a number of motorcycle officers now to kind of help out with that, but we really haven't. The problems that we had on Jones they've been pretty consistent as far as school traffic, and with the Montessori school and the elementary school there. Yeah, it's still congested and dangerous.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you, staff, for the updates, and I'm really excited to see the software implementations that we have. That'll make it a lot easier for residents to navigate to the places they need to go. We're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is agenda item number 4, council consideration of agenda items for approval on consent. Councilmember Rosengarten.
I move to approve on consent agenda item number 5, minutes of June 3rd with a minor addition. Agenda item number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9, number 10, number 11, number 12, and number 15.
We are with 15, which we could approve on consent. Councilmember Medicus?
I'd like to pull 15.
15's pulled, okay. Any others?
Let's pull 9 and 10.
Okay, we'll pull 9 and 10.
We can make it quick.
All right, any others that we want to pull? All right, so the motion is to approve on consent item number 5, 6, 7, 8, 11, and 12. Is there a second for that motion? Councilmember Medicus, seconds? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. All right, we approved on consent item number 5, the meeting minutes from June 3rd, 2025 regular meeting with the submitted changes that the city secretary had. Item number 6, appointment of Charles Young as the council liaison to the Planning and Environmental Committee. Item number 7, approval and ordinance amending the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget. This will be budget amendment number 9 for software maintenance fees and building repairs. Item number 8, approval of amendments to the fiscal policies 103, 105, and 317 related to the general fund reserve policy. Item number 11, approval of an agreement with the Other Ones Foundation for conservation work for the city. Item number 12, approval of an interlocal agreement with Travis County for the provision of emergency law enforcement dispatch services. All right, so council, we're going to go back now to agenda item number 9. This is Item number 9 and 10 are related. We had two different RFPs. I'll hand it over to Councilmember Johnson since you pulled those items if you wanted to.
It was, sorry, yeah, it was just very close. So what 9 is setting Knight Law Firm, which is the current law firm for the city attorney, and these are kind of like bundled together in the actual.
Yeah, I'll hand it over to
I had
City
I had a typo in the cover page of number 9, reusing the cover page from 10. So 9 should have read, consider an act on selecting the Knight Law Firm as city attorney pursuant to RFQ 04012025A. So we released an RFQ back in April. We had 2 firms send statements of qualifications, the Knight Law Firm and Langley and Banach. The Knight Law Firm is our current city attorney. Per the RFQ, there was to be a staff panel to score the statements of qualifications. The panel consisted of myself, the Development Services Manager, and Mayor Bruner, and so we collected those scores. The scores were very close. Both firms are highly qualified. I am recommending the Knight Law Firm. Strengths include familiarity with the city's land development code, consistent assistance with contractual matters and public information requests, and 5 years of experience serving as city attorney. So.
Go ahead.
It was a very close score. Was it 276 to 275? Was it? 1 point. It was a 1 point difference. So just didn't want to barge that right through consent. If I'm the only person if everyone else was cool with it, I know nobody else raised it, so now I get to make the motion, I guess.
Go for it.
Yeah. Did you say the cover pages are correct? If I just
The
read
cover
them?
page is, if you read page, if you read page 59, read page 60. That's the motion.
Okay. For everyone out in the audience, I am terrible at this, so just get ready for a show here. I want to make a motion that we approve the selection of Knight Law Firm as city attorney and authorization for the mayor to negotiate and execute a professional services contract.
Is there a second for that motion? Okay. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. All right, motion passes. And then item number 10 is for the prosecutorial services, which we only had one submission or response to.
What page is that?
Correct.
It's on the staff recommendation.
It's on page 94,
94, yep.
of the packet, yes, and we had one firm, and the municipal judge reviewed their statement of qualifications. We also interviewed them and feel they are very qualified to serve as our prosecutor.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve of Langley and Banach as municipal court prosecutor and authorize the mayor to negotiate and execute a contract for legal services.
Is there a second for that motion? Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. You did great, Rob. You did great. All right, so council, that's going to take us to our next agenda item, which is related to agenda item number 14. This is consider an act, item number 13, consider an act on approval of a short form subdivision at 9 Reese Drive under section 150.303 of the Land Development Code. And I'm going to hand it over to city staff for an introduction to this item. And specifically, this item is where it's distinct from item 14.
Correct.
And I'll have the city administrator explain how we're making sure that we're handling this one separately from item number 14, which is the variance request.
Yes, so this is a public hearing. It could have been approved on consent, but I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to our Development Services Manager.
Mayor and Council, Jerry Restoven again. This item 13 is a public hearing and action on a short form subdivision, also known as a final without a preliminary, for the property located at 9 Reese Drive under section 150.303 of the Land Development Code. Notices have been mailed to all residents within 500 feet of this property, notifying them of the public hearing we're conducting right now. The property is currently zoned single-family residential, and the staff does recommend approval of the plat. I'd like to point out there seems to have been some confusion about the term subdivision and how many lots are going to be on this property. The property is a single property today. This subdivision would simply create a single, what we call legal lot. So it's not creating more lots where there are not lots today. The property is basically becoming a single legal lot. The difference between what it is today and what it will become are that today it is described by something we call field notes. So the description of this property is a 2.49 acre piece of land out of the Theodore Bissell Survey number 18, et cetera, from an iron rod found at this point to an iron rod at that point. And that is enough to buy a piece of property, but all cities, Sunset Valley included, in order to facilitate the orderly planning of cities, require that prior to pulling permits, whether they be site plans, watershed development permits, building permits, et cetera, that you have to be in what we call a legal subdivision. Sometimes those subdivisions are huge, Circle C. Sometimes they're small. This one, a single lot on 2.5 acres. So what's happened is the city engineer, Gary here, myself have reviewed this plat, determined that it meets all city requirements as well as any state requirements. And under state law, the city council is actually obligated to approve a plat if it meets all city and state requirements, unless the city council determines that the staff or our consultant have made an error in interpreting the code. So state law does not allow much latitude at all, frankly, in approving a plat. If it conforms to the requirements, it must be approved. Is honestly not a very discretionary matter unless you find a fault in our interpretation. So with that, I'm available for any questions.
Yeah, so council, just to reiterate, this is something that the state law requires us to approve unless we find issue with the staff review of this process. This does not obligate the city for any kind of variance approval or any approval for development. That's handled separately through a variance process in this particular case because this lot has restrictions on it based on where it's located. So we'll open up for council for questions, if there's questions about this. But again, unless we find an issue with the staff review, we have an obligation to approve the plat, not anything unrelated to the plat itself. Councilmember Johnson?
I'm just going to make a motion to, what's this public hearing? We never opened the hearing.
I was told that we didn't have to open the hearing.
Okay. I'm looking for what the motion is going to be here. Will assist?
You can just say approval of the short form subdivision.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'd like to make a motion on the approval of a short form subdivision at 9 Reese Drive under section 150.303 of the Land Development Code to allow for the creation of a single legal lot.
That's the motion. Is there a second? Mayor Pro Tem seconds. Further discussion? We'll go ahead and open it up for public comments for agenda item number 13.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Hey, everybody. Glad to see you. So I just have one question related, because I didn't see y'all asking it, related to the question that Susan Durso asked, attorney and BOA member, is are we clear that the applicant for this plat is the legal owner, and does that person have authority? Because she did bring up the point that that it was on the agenda issue a problem, and so we don't really want to grant a variance if we don't know that person has authority to ask for it. So that's my question.
It's a question for staff. Does that apply to the plat approval?
Yes.
And it's
So the plat itself is signed by Kit Sheffield, representative for 9 Reese LLC. The city attorney has looked up 9 Reese LLC, and the addresses match on the plat as well as on the Secretary of State's page. On the Secretary of State's page, and the agreements all list Mr. Sheffield as an authorized signer on behalf of the LLC. So what's different is it's not an individual's name or a married couple's name. It's in the name of it. We've checked that he, in fact, is the person authorized to sign on behalf of the LLC.
And that applies for both the plat and the variance request? Okay.
Yes.
So right now the city has done the review. The recommendation is that
Yes, we believe Mr. Sheffield is authorized to sign on behalf of this piece of property.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, Councilman Rosengard?
I have a question. To call it a subdivision usually means that a piece of property is subdivided. And we're calling this a subdivision form just in order to get a plat for this piece of property. Could, once it is approved, then it be subdivided again?
Yes, any piece of property can be subdivided provided it complies with city and state law. So in this case, they said the property is, I think, about 2.5 acres. They simply wanted to take the property and, do a final without a preliminary and, formalize that piece of property, which will now be called Lot 1, Block 1 of the, I believe it's the Milla acres. But yes, in the future, just, any resident, frankly, can come file a subdivision. We would have to review it for compliance with city law. For example, minimum lot size. So, things like that we would be looking at to make sure it complies.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, so again, the motion is just to approve the plot. It is not any other action by the council until we get to the next agenda item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. All right. So we're going to be going into our last set of agenda items of presentation for discussion and possible action. We're going to begin with item number 14. And just for everybody here who's here to speak to this item, we're going to have staff go over the item as an introduction. We are going to offer the applicant a chance to speak and be available for questions. Council will get a chance to ask questions of both staff and the applicant if they wish to. And then once we've gone through council questions, we will open it up for public comments, starting with the cards that we received. And again, we're going to be asking people to adhere to the 4-minute time, as well as just speaking once, so that we make sure we hear everybody in a timely manner. So with that, I'll open up for the city staff to present this item, and then we'll proceed from there.
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, everyone. So I just wanted to discuss some things regarding the variance process and the scope of what we're here to discuss tonight and what council is deliberating on. So again, this request is not a full site plan approval. It is a variance request under section 150.323 of the Land Development Code to allow development within the critical water quality zone. So section 150.328C states that the critical water quality zone is to remain free of construction activity with a list of exceptions, one of those exceptions being structures approved by a council variance. So administratively, the critical water quality zone and also the water quality transition zone within the 75-foot buffer to the critical water quality zone is at 0% administratively approved impervious cover. So any residential development on this lot requires a council variance. The only decision before council tonight is whether the applicant has met the 5 findings required for a variance under this section. So this is not a land use or a zoning case. Granting the variance does not constitute approval of the full watershed development permit. Additional review by staff and the city engineer is still required before permits are issued or construction begins if council grants a variance. Council is not approving fencing, lighting, or final landscaping details this evening, only whether a certain amount of impervious cover is allowable in the critical water quality zone. So the applicant is requesting impervious cover. Staff and the recommend that if a variance is granted, impervious cover be capped at 14%. I will just read for present the 5 findings. So no variance shall be approved unless the city council finds that there are special circumstances or conditions affecting the land involved such that strict application of the provisions of this chapter would deprive the applicant of the reasonable and economic use of the land, that the variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of a substantial property right of the applicant, that the granting of the variance will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or injurious to other property in the area, that the granting of the variance will not have the effect of preventing the orderly development of other land in the area in accordance with the provisions of this chapter, and that the proposal demonstrates water quality will be equal to or better than would have resulted had development proceeded without the variance. Just a few more notes. As we saw earlier on the map, the lot is located both in the 100-year floodplain and floodway. The proposed development is in the 100-year floodplain, and approximately 94% of the lot lies within the critical water quality zone. And again, the small strip that is outside of the critical water quality zone is in the 75-foot buffer to the critical water quality zone and the water quality transition zone. So the applicant has provided a hydrologic and hydraulic report by Ranger Engineering and a geotechnical report by Alpha Testing. The finished floor elevation of the home is proposed to be at least 12 inches above the 500-year flood elevation. City engineer does not object to the variance provided that impervious cover is limited to no more than 14% and all mitigation is implemented and maintained. And of course, council must meet the 5 findings. So there's been public comments surrounding the proposed fencing, including a concrete wall in the front and portions of the front and a gabion wall on the surrounding 3 sides. So again, council's not approving the fencing as part of this variance. However, preliminary review indicates that the proposed fencing may not comply with recently adopted fencing regulations that we adopted back on May 20th, and the engineer has raised concerns in discussion about the gabion wall. So if a variance is granted, staff and the city engineer recommend one condition be added to the list of conditions already provided, that any fencing on the property must comply with the land development code and must not impede drainage or flood flows. So again, as the staff recommendation says, if council finds that the 5 criteria in section 153.23A are met, staff recommends conditional approval with the following: limit impervious cover to no more than 14%, require a code-compliant vegetative filter strip and native revegetation, execute and record a restrictive covenant outlining mitigation and maintenance responsibilities, and require that all fencing comply with code and not obstruct flood flows. Again, this is approval of the variance does not constitute approval of a full watershed development permit or site plan. The city engineer is present for questions, and as discussed with some council members, staff has prepared a list of variances approved within development, has prepared a list of variances approved by council in the past. We went back to 2008, where council has approved development within the critical water quality zone. So we have that list available.
All right, thank you. And,
Oh,
okay.
and one more thing, would you all like to see the map of the site one more time? Okay. Using our new site. So again, blow it up here. So this is the floodplain in the pink, and then the hashed area, that in the more intense pink, that is the floodway. And let me turn off the flood layers and turn on the critical water quality zone. That's the buffer to the critical water quality zone, and then this is the water quality transition zone. So again, because of this lot is located pretty much entirely in the critical and in the buffer to the critical, it is at 0% administratively approved impervious cover. So that is why we are here, because you cannot develop on this lot without seeking a council variance.
All right, thank you. So council, open up for questions, but also if the applicant wishes to speak and address council, they can invite them to do so at this time. Otherwise, we can proceed with council questions to staff and to the engineers.
And also, as of course included in the backup, the applicant did submit a letter indicating how they feel they have met the findings. So that was in the backup as well.
Is this on? Oh, perfect. My name is Hunter Tips. I'm the architect for the project at 9 Reese Drive. I want to thank council members, and I want to thank all of you for coming. I appreciate your concern. It has not gone unheard, and I understand the concern. I myself live in a floodway in my own house, so I'm very amenable and understand just the plight of living in a floodplain and the concerns surrounding there's new development in a floodplain. It's super concerning, and you want to make sure that nothing's going to harm you. And you do want to apologize on behalf of Kit. It's actually his 10th anniversary tonight. So he wanted to be here, but obviously I think the 10th anniversary probably takes a little precedent. Sure, sorry. Is this a bit better? Awesome. I also want to say I do feel a little famous or infamous, maybe. It feels interesting to be so notorious in the neighborhood. But, obviously there's a lot of concern about this project. First and foremost, I'll say that the project it's not a business. Kit, the client, my client, the property owner, his desire is to build a home for him, his wife, and his children. You know, when he bought this lot, that was his intention to begin with. There was never an interest in creating a business or creating undue issues for the neighborhood. I mean, his goal is to be a neighbor here, to be a friend to all of you, to live here. That's the end goal. There's no desire for a business. It's never been expressed to me. He's never wanted a business. Him and his wife are both tennis players. Their young daughter, Mila, is a 4-year-old tennis prodigy. Thus the tennis courts. I mean, you know, I don't know about you guys, but if I played professional tennis, I'd want somewhere to play on my residence. And so, yeah, really his ultimate goal is to move into Sunset Valley and make it their home. You know, he wants this space to feel welcoming to everyone in the neighborhood. He wants to create a home that feels part of the fabric of the neighborhood. When he bought this lot, I don't think he anticipated how many challenges he would run into. I don't know that anyone necessarily ever does when they try and buy a lot and then find out later on, it's like, surprise, it's completely in a floodplain. There's nothing you can do. That's never a fun conversation to have. And so when we approached this project, the first thing that we wanted to be cognizant of, obviously, is we're in a floodplain. What can we do that gives them a space, that gives them a home, but does so in a manner that is as best as possible going to protect the property, but also protect everyone downstream, upstream. And we went through rigorous analysis. We went through a lot of iterations. Some didn't make the cut, which is why you see what we have today. And when we went through the process of designing, we, you know, hired an engineer to carefully calculate the Williamson Creek, way upstream, way downstream, to figure out, like, what is our house going to do? And through each one of our findings, you know, creating the home that we did, the tiny footprint that we did, it had no negative downstream effect in all the analysis. Obviously, if it did, we wouldn't be here today. We'd be redesigning, we'd be thinking about this differently. But the reason we're coming to you is because we've created something that we feel protects the existing floodplain, doesn't cause any undue harm, and creates a home that we hope will fit into the fabric of the surrounding neighborhood. You know, Sunset Valley it's a challenging place to live, obviously being so much of it in the floodplain, let alone trying to build something new. I mean, most of the homes here were built well before we even considered things like flood flows and, you know, all the things that people have to deal with now. And so our goal is, you know, if we are going to, you know, create a project in this neighborhood, how do we do so in a way that preserves, one, the environment that we have today, does so carefully, does so that, you know, the people that are living around us are not caused any issue. You know, obviously it's a large lot. We want to push everything away from the sort of corners. We love the nature in Sunset Valley. I mean, that's one of the things that drew them to this property in the first place, is because they're like, crap, this is a fantastic place to live. We love it here. It's beautiful. We like the vibe. We like the people around us. You know, that's why we want to build a home here. And so, you know, through our entire design process, our goal with every iteration, with all the discussions that we've had with the city staff, and there have been a lot, we've gone through this many times trying to figure out what we can do, is to create something that protects and preserves the existing Sunset Valley. You know, we don't want to create a home that's ginormous. We want to create a home that has a tight and small footprint, so it doesn't create sort of substantial flood flow. The reason we initially discussed, you know, having these tennis courts here is because it is low lying. It doesn't disturb existing flood flows. And on top of that, with the design that we've done through our engineer, you know, creating a monstrous sized vegetative filter strip completely from the edge of the development all the way down to the creek to preserve any, you know, natural environment, but also, you know, create an opportunity for any sort of would cause any issue for neighbors down the way. That's really the goal of this project, is to create a home for a friend and a client in a neighborhood that they really like, so that when they do make this their home, they're, you know, doing so in such a way that it doesn't harm their neighbors. Again, this is where they want to live. This is where they want to be. And they want to do so in a way that, you know, several of these sort of like designs with different architects and designers. So I appreciate the willingness to listen to our case, and I appreciate all of you for coming to comment on it. And I do invite any questions or concerns. I'm happy to discuss it with anyone because I understand. And again, my goal is to do something good for my client, but also do something in a way that is beautiful and protects the area that it's a part of. So, thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to start with council. If you have questions either for staff or for the applicant's representative, now's the time to do that. And once we get through council questions again, we're going to go to public comments. Councilmember Medicus.
So I just want to make clear from staff that in meetings with the client after they, or even when they were looking at buying the property or when they bought the property, they were made aware of the sensitive nature of this property. Is that correct?
That's correct. Before the architect was engaged and we were meeting with the buyer, Mr. Sheffield, he was made aware of both the, impervious cover regulations and that it was located in a floodplain and partially in a floodway, and was told that any development on the lot would require a council variance.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Couple questions for staff or for the engineer. The total impervious cover here is 17,214 square feet, correct?
Proposed, correct.
How much of that impervious cover is the tennis courts?
12,760, so a very large percentage of the impervious cover is the tennis courts.
Over 70%, in fact.
Correct.
What is the square footage of the house?
1590, so Sunset Valley in the code has a minimum minimum primary residence size of 1,500 square feet.
So it's barely larger than the minimum size.
Correct.
And this is for a family of 4 with growing children. How much is the square footage of the pool?
The pool is, well, the pool is not counted in impervious cover, and I don't think the coping is within what is considered exempt.
Right,
So
I know, but I'm just
pool is
curious.
exempt. I'm sorry?
I'm just curious what it is.
I would have to,
Okay. And the parking is impervious cover, correct?
that's correct, yes. The driveway that includes the parking is 1537.
1537. And it looked to me, and I may be wrong, but when I looked at the things, it doesn't look like the driveway goes all the way to the house. Is that correct?
I don't believe it does, and we've seen that before, and a lot of residents utilize pathways that are considered exempt. So,
Okay.
like gravel and whatnot.
I thought I saw somewhere in the report.
There's a gravel walkway to the residence,
Right.
which built in such a way that it would be considered exempt.
Okay. Again, correct me if I have this wrong, but I thought I saw something in the report about the mitigation of a vegetative area.
So yes, would you like me to pull up that report with the vegetative filter strip? Sure. Sorry, I gotta open that report up. Hang on. Apologies. I believe it's on this page here. So here's the property, here's the road, the top of the page. And this area here is proposed to be the vegetative filter strip. I believe the vegetative filter strip they have at 39,000 square feet.
And I have a question for the engineer. Given the current design, is that a sufficient amount or not?
So the engineer is not present tonight. He's out of town. But I can answer the question, at least hopefully on his behalf, and state that through his analysis of the requirements of the vegetative filter strip, it does meet the needs of the proposed development.
Does staff agree with that?
We do.
Huh? Right. Yes, I was asking. since Gary is here, I don't know, do you know the answer to that question, sir?
What was the question?
Is
Do we
the
agree?
amount set aside for vegetation sufficient, given this current design or not, to meet all the requirements?
Correct, yes.
It is, okay. Okay, I have more, but I don't want to. Well, I want people to get out their questions first, and then maybe we'll get into the discussion.
Okay. Councilor Rosengard.
From what I'm reading, the vegetative filter does not meet requirements of Sunset Valley. It needs to be 49,059 for 17,200 for 14 square feet of impervious cover at a rate of 2.86. Question for the engineer, I guess. It says selective grading and terraces reduce storm water velocity. I don't see how, especially if we have clay soil and soil. So who would I direct this question to? Our engineer, or architect is an architect, not a soil analyst? Gary?
Correct. So in this analysis, they took sections from the flood studies from Flood Pro, and they developed a section that shows the improvement for the house in here. And through that analysis, they showed that the flow rates and the water surface elevation through those sections would not increase, or the water surface elevation would not increase. And so all that was put into the model. Basically, portions of these sections are creating obstructions in the floodplain, which obviously slow down water in portions. In other areas, they're creating impervious cover that potentially could increase those flows. And so the balance between those kind of equalize the project across it and through it. But the conditions of the site, the terraces are around the house and things around the pool area, but most of that is at grade. And so the additional landscaping they're putting in replaces some of the landscaping throughout the sections of the property. And so through the flood study analysis, again, it showed a slight decrease, about 2/100ths of a foot decrease in water surface elevation in 3 different storm events: the 50-year event, the 100-year event, and the 500-year event.
Continuing on, there is a map I looked at today that shows that this is in a 25-year floodplain, and I got it off our real estate website, Austin Board of Realtors. So we have different maps showing different floodplains. And has anybody made sure we have the most up-to-date, like Atlas 14 flood map?
Yes, so the 25-year floodplain would be smaller. The 100-year event is a greater event. And the analysis that the engineer did through their no-rise study pulled the models from Austin's Flood Pro website that takes into account the Atlas 14 studies. And it's the best information available. As they mentioned in the intro, we took a look at this situation. The applicant has elevated the finished floor of the home to 1 foot above the 500-year floodplain. The water surface elevation between the 500-year and the 100-year is about 3 inches. It's not a significant amount. But so, through the analysis, again, it shows that it didn't create a rise in the water surface elevation for the 50, 100, and 500-year events, which are more significant than the 25-year event.
Thank you.
We can go back to your questions, Mayor Pro Tem.
No, if no one has any more questions they want to ask the architect or the engineer, I'd like to address the issue, which is I share the concerns of many of the citizens here. One of the things I've been hearing about was the 2013 flood. I think they call it the Halloween flood. And I was told that basically enough water came in to cover the bridge and cut off those areas of recent sunset in back of the bridge. Right. Yeah, there's been flooding since, when I moved here in 2018, one night, when my wife was here at city council and I was home, all of a sudden I saw water coming pouring in my back door. And I think everyone I've talked to has a flood story here, right? We all live with a certain amount of risk, especially the people who are close to this area, close to 9 Reese. And people are willing to accept that. What I don't think is acceptable is increasing that risk. And frankly, what I'm reading, I don't buy it. I don't see how you can add on, in this particular piece of property, 17,000 square feet of impervious cover, and it's going to be no worse than it was before. We know another event like 2013 is going to happen, right? It's not if, it's when. And I cannot, I totally share. I cannot imagine putting our neighbors at more risk than they already have. I think that's, I think that is incredibly unfair to them. I mean, at the very least, I don't want to see this go through, but if it does, I would like to see at the very least an independent engineering study done by expert hydrologists to assess this. Not that I don't trust what's been done, but I'm of the trust but verify thing. But even then, even if it's, in the opinion of some expert hydrologists, no worse than it was before, which again I have trouble buying, I don't think the risk of this is worth it. And I think there's another risk you should think about too. We've just seen what happened on the Guadalupe a couple of weeks ago, right? Other people were at risk in this. The EMTs, the police officers, the other people who had to go to heroic efforts and put themselves at risk to try to save people. I do not want to see that happen to our police people, our public works people, Austin EMTs, or anyone else in an event like this, because they're at risk too. I think that's unfair to them. I could not possibly support anything that puts my neighbors at greater risk. I can't see this project having any possibility of not putting them at greater risk. Thank you.
Councilmember Medicus and then Councilmember Johnson.
Kind of wish I went before you.
Yeah.
Sorry, she had her
So,
hand raised first. Sure.
When we're looking at these applications, we need to consider those criteria. And I don't believe that this application meets either 3, 4, or 5. 3, I believe that granting a variance would be detrimental to our public health, safety, and other property owners in the area. 4, I think potential flooding would negatively impact other development in the land in that area. And we have these ordinances for a reason. This is a critical water zone. It's close to a low water crossing. It's close to the bridge. I don't see how it can't impact our community, so I don't think they meet number 4. And number 5, the proposed mitigation for water quality, I don't think is significant or sufficient to meet our code. And one of the things that concerns me anytime we do these over the years is that we have these vegetation strips that we say are going to be mitigation, and we have no way of inspecting these. We don't have requirements for maintenance and inspection, and so I just don't think they meet the criteria for basic approval of this, and do not support it.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you. We have these five points that we have to pass all of them. Honestly, I've been up here 5 years. I've never seen one fail so many points. Honestly, it's just usually, some of them are like squishy, but I could pick something on every single one of them that this variance fails. So we have this one fund in our budget, and we kind of colloquially call it the green fund, and it's money that we use to buy properties that are in the floodplain to prevent more development within them. Just since I've been on the council, 3 properties have been kind of moved off from single-family residential to owned by the government, or owned by the city because of this issue. We're at the confluence of 3 different creeks. And the timing of this Forerunner site coming in is kind of strange, but if you see where this property is, it almost dams up Cougar Creek. You know, that's what that would act like right there, and that would just all push it back. There's some of it just strains credulity. There is a concrete, and it is mentioned in the backup material, but there's a concrete foundation there. If I showed up, I'd say, why is there a bridge over this property, and why is there a foundation right there? And it's well, that house flooded twice. The one on the other side, which is, I guess, 9 Sunset Trail, and 10? It'd be 10, sorry. So, well, 9 Sunset Trail has flooded within the last 10 years or whatever. 10, who lives next to 10? Is it Cynthia? When that house was built a long time ago, she said to them, it's it floods there, and they're it'll be fine. And I think it was 2 months. She told me that story. It took 2 months before that house flooded, and they tore it down and just moved on. Does somebody know that story? That's what I'm thinking about? Okay.
So let's
sorry.
we want to make sure that comments are included in the record. So they'll get a chance to tell us.
Yeah. All right, sorry. So with all that, we're very sensitive. We've got the creeks. We have a fund to buy properties to pull them out so that they don't put further pressure. You saw almost all of Old Town being potentially being flooded. They do flood all the time with just regular rain that doesn't count even as flood events. And then, so that addresses for 1 through 5. That's kind of my thinking on it. The point about, which can't be taken into account here, but just loving the property and then scraping it of 14 live oaks. A 25-inch live oak is how old, Carolyn, would you say? It's very old, 300 years old, and it's we love Sunset Valley. Cut down all the live oaks. It's just, that is not somebody that loves Sunset Valley or loves the property. I don't know. So that's all for now, but I'll let someone else go.
Other council members that have questions either for staff or for the applicant as represented? All right. At this time, I'm going to open up for public comments. This will be starting with those members of the public that have submitted cards to speak. And then, so when you call a name, if you ask if you still want to speak to this topic, we're going to have them step up to the podium, and then we're going to revisit the council deliberation at the end of the public comment session. And we'll begin with City Administrator selecting the cards. So,
Sandy Cox.
and if you could, just as a reminder, please state your name, and we were going to be adhering to the 4-minute time limit. So I'll try to remind folks when we're coming close to that limit. Please go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Sandy Cox. I live at 14 Sunset Trail. I am speaking on behalf of my family and Cynthia Nelson, who lives at number 12. I am addressing specifically findings 3 and 5 of the applicant's request. This property at number 9 Reese directly borders my property and the Nelson property. We will both be negatively impacted by development of this magnitude of impervious cover. It is literally in my backyard. It would be damaging in more ways than I could possibly have time to discuss right now. Specifically, finding number 3 with the requirement that the variance not be injurious to other properties. The impervious cover requested of this size can only increase the effects of the overflow and runoff onto my property. There are already severe drainage issues on all of these properties. No expert mitigation measures, no engineering design, no detailed watershed analysis will stop the deluge of water that happens when, after several days of rain, we have a rainfall of multiple inches in 1 hour. No expert opinion can stop the racing water when it starts to move. This is our real life experience. This project will only increase the problems that already exist. With regard to finding number 5, the applicant states that there's a plan for substantive native plantings that will mitigate the effect of the proposed development and subsequent runoff. Again, drainage issues on all of the surrounding properties have proven many times that no amount of vegetation will mitigate the effects of heavy runoff. This project, with its extensive impervious cover, would have a disastrous effect on both my property and the Nelson property, and I strongly ask that you completely deny this variance request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan Young?
Good evening, Council and Mayor. I'm Susan Young, and I live at 14 Reese Drive. I have lived in Sunset Valley for 62 years. On Reese Drive, I do not hold myself to be an expert, but I have seen the disastrous results of flooding from Cougar Creek on my neighbors. I've also seen flooding problems from Williamson Creek to my neighbors who are at the south end of Reese, Lone Oak Trail, and Pillow Trail. I agree with Ms. Cox's analysis of the situation. We do not need any more impervious cover in this area. Yes, anything they're talking about building at 1 foot above the natural grade now, great, another block to force water back onto Reese, more onto Sunset Trail. We've looked at the flood maps tonight. I am shocked that my property on Reese Drive has gone from a floodplain encroachment of 1 foot by the telephone pole at the north corner on Reese to now an almost 30-foot encroachment on my property. Yes, I have flood insurance, but flood insurance doesn't cover everything. It doesn't cover loss of life from my neighbors. God forbid that would ever happen. It doesn't cover much of anything when you get right down to it. We need to not approve this request, and I agree with the council member Johnson that maybe even pursuing the idea of purchasing these properties along with the other ones that the city has in our portfolio of flood mitigation will help our neighbors. As long as we have more improvements to the west of us that highly impact the flooding on our area, there is nothing we can do. We've got to protect ourselves. And we can do that by not allowing any more development in a floodplain. Thank you for your comments tonight.
Thank you.
Russell Hardy?
Mayor, members of the City Council, Russell Harding, 10 Pillow Road. There are many problems with this project. It's totally inappropriate for the residential area like Reese. But I'm only going to speak to the tennis courts. I played tennis almost all my life, certainly except for the last few years. I love tennis. I would not want to live next door to a tennis court. The noise would be intolerable. It would be just oppressive for the neighbors. And with 2 tennis courts, it's not just going to be for the family. There are going to be other people coming and playing. And you're going to have tennis and swimming parties, and the noise will be just oppressive for the neighbors. So for those reasons, along with all the other reasons that make this an inappropriate project, I would recommend that you deny this variance request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I have some comment cards from residents that don't wish to speak, but Darby Parkins at 16 Sunset, John Perkins at 16 Sunset, and Malcolm and Karen Flournoy at 23 Reese all don't wish to speak, correct, but they all oppose the approval of the variance. And the next I have listed to speak is Scott Crow.
Hi, Council. I haven't been before you, and the mayor, thank you for having a hearing on this. I live at 25 Reese. I pay $2,000 a year just for floodway insurance in the back of my yard that I don't use, which is beautiful. It's natural. I moved to Sunset Valley because everybody here cared about flood mitigation and trying to do that. Not in a NIMBY way, like not in my backyard, but because we cared about the natural spaces around here. That's what attracted us to live here and stuff. I don't believe your story, and I'm sorry that guy put you out. He's throwing you under the bus. I just want you to know that. I don't believe his family's gonna move from a 3,000 square foot house to a 1,500 square foot house with 4 people and needs 2 tennis courts. Sir, you're lying, and he's lying to you. And if it was appropriate, how many neighbors have 2 tennis courts in there now? If you guys did all the research, you guys didn't ask me, you didn't ask anybody. You didn't care, you just were gonna do what you were gonna do.
So just ask that we keep our comments, not personal, not directed towards individuals.
Well, this guy's getting thrown under the bus by somebody who's not even here to stand up for their own property.
Understood. But we want to make sure that we have a reasonable discussion.
Anyway, in addition to everything they said, this is absolutely inappropriate development, overdevelopment in this neighborhood, as you all know, and everybody can see it. And it's absolutely rude at the least for anybody to not even try to figure it out with people and go like, hey, we're thinking about this, because everybody would have gone, no, man, that's crazy. You don't want to do that. It's going to flood. Immediately, it's going to flood. That's all I have to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Okay, Robert Pavlika, you want to speak? And Sherry?
Oh, I will.
You will? Okay.
Hi, I'm Sherry Pavlisa. I live at 26 Sunset Trail, and I've lived here a long time. I've seen maybe 5 100-year floods. Maybe. No, seriously, I would advise your client to rethink this because he will get flooded. He will get flooded on that piece of property. So we've seen it over and over the years, and especially there's nothing we can do about the Westgate Bridge. That's Austin, and that's where it stops, the water stops and comes back. So he might want to rethink this, maybe do what Rob said.
Thank you.
Dan Allen.
Hello, I'm Dan Allen. I live at 12 Reese Drive. My family and I moved into our house a little under a year ago. We always knew 9 Reese had sold recently, so we were aware of the possibility of a single-family house being developed there. But when we look at kind of the site plan of what's being proposed, it's very concerning to us. Starting off with the double tennis courts, I don't think 1 tennis court is a hardship. 2 tennis courts is just really excessive. I think it's like 13,000 square feet of impervious cover. The amount of noise from tennis, from pickleball, from just the lighting, it just seems excessive. It seems like it's going to have a real negative impact on the quality of life for everyone who lives around there. And you know, my family, we live directly across the road. There's a lot of people right around there. And then you kind of couple that with the real large pool that's being built as well. I know we're not here for the pool, but the pool is like a 30-foot by 60-foot pool. It's like a 3 or 4 lane lap pool. It really starts to feel like you got 2 tennis courts, a big lap pool. Seems like almost like a country club being built here, a private one. And then you have, then you kind of have this small house, you know, right under 1,600 square feet. Interesting to find out that it's right at the minimum size that's allowable here. And you actually look at the drawings that the architect presented, and 1/3 of the house, you can see in the pictures, is just kind of like a workout exercise room. It really just seems like it's kind of a clubhouse there, right? And so you get the clubhouse, the pool, the tennis courts, starts to feel like a private country club. My concern, you know, there's only 3 parking spaces, so you're gonna have country club, 3 parking spaces. There's gonna be people, she plays with a lot of neighborhood friends. They're on the road all the time, riding their bikes and scooters back and forth to each other's houses. Cars need to be careful, right? We got kids on bikes, we got people out walking on the road, people walking dogs, baby strollers. It's a very busy road with people on it. We don't have sidewalks. So I'm very concerned about the extra traffic that's gonna be there. It just seems like a very detrimental and kind of dangerous situation. So, you know, not even talking about the fence here, it just seems very, very concerning. You know, I was kind of curious about what's the motivation here. You know, we heard from the architect. I did do some Googling, found out, you know, that Mr. Sheffield and his brother were original owners of the Major League Pickleball team here in Austin, I guess. Let me see if I get it here, the Texas Ranchers Major League Pickleball team. So that's kind of concerning. That's a lot of pickleball stuff. And then his brother, among many other things, also owns the Drop Shot Tournament Series, tennis tournament series here, which is also kind of concerning. It's a big deal. They host the Women's Tennis Association ATX Open here, which is an international tennis tournament. So it's very concerning, just the amount of tennis, amount of pickleball that's kind of could be going on there. So overall, I would strongly recommend that the council, you know, vote to deny this. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Tish Phillips at 20 Reese submitted a card and did not wish to speak. Is that correct? Correct. Okay. But opposes the variance. Gina and Shannon at 13.
Hi, thanks. So I just want to say that for all the reasons that my neighbors have already talked about, I strongly believe that this should be a non-starter. And I also want to add something, a conversation I had with the property owner to shed some light with everyone that I don't believe that we're being told the truth. I actually met him. I work from home like 1 or 2 days a week, and I saw a car pull up. I knew that it had been purchased recently. So I just walked out my side door. We live directly next door to this property. And I just walked up just trying to be friendly, like, hello, my name is Gina, I live next door. Did you buy the property? Are you guys building? Because I'd known about the problems beforehand. And he said to me, he said, no, my wife we live in Westlake. My wife wants a country club, so we're gonna do a country club and a tennis court and a pickleball court and a pool, but of course not by our house because it's too loud. So that's what he said to me directly. And so I'm here today with my wife to strongly object this going through, because I don't think that this, trying to be diplomatic, I don't believe that this property owner has Sunset Valley in the best interest of the plant.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm Shannon McKinney. Gina and I live immediately next door to the property. And I met Kit too. And he told me the exact same thing. We're not going to live here. We're going to build a little house. And I immediately told him, you can't build here. You're the third owner of this property in the past couple of years, and it fails. And these people come out and they look at their blueprints and they work on it, and they have all these grand ideas. We're going to build our dream home here, and then they fail. And then it goes for sale for $200,000 more, and it sells again, and that's what keeps happening. So he told me too, we're not going to live here. We live in Westlake, you know. We just want to have a place to come play. So Gina and I play a lot of pickleball. We are very aware of the noise. It's ridiculous. I can't even believe that this is a conversation we're having, because I think that he told us too, they want to build one tennis court. So one tennis court holds 2 pickleball courts. I think that, first of all, this map is not, this can't be a 1,500-foot house, and that's the same size as a tennis court. So I know that's not the real, it's obviously not to scale, but I think that's very deceitful what that shows, because our house is 1,700 square feet. We are nowhere near the size of a tennis court, and this is like the same. So that's not even real. And it's just deceitful. I think the Kit is deceitful, he and his billionaire brother, who do plan to play tennis and have big pickleball. So one tennis court holds 2 pickleball courts. That would be 4 pickleball courts right there. 16 people playing pickleball. And when you're good, it's fast and it's loud and it's constant. And we play 2 hours at a time, starting at 7 o'clock in the morning at parks or indoor places. So we know this goes all, I mean, we play all the time. It goes long and it's super loud. There is no way that all of Reese Drive will not hear pickleball or Sunset Trail. When the Halloween flood happened, we all stood on that bridge saying, oh my God, because the water went about halfway to our house. And we were sitting there looking, oh my God, this might happen. We also have to have flood insurance. Well, we don't have to, but we do because of the risk. We saw that day. I mean, the water came halfway down the lot. How is this not gonna happen? One more thing I wanna say. He started with, and I'm sorry, I'm all over the place, I know. He came to us and he told us he was gonna do 1 tennis court. I honestly think that this is his strategy to start with 2 and then say, okay, city's bad at us, we're just gonna do 1. We'll do one tennis court. And that's what I think he's gonna do, because he told Gina and I 1 tennis court. And now all of a sudden it's 2 tennis courts. And this is a ridiculous diagram of what the size of 2 tennis courts is. And the people on Sunset Trail, they are really gonna get it, even though they already flood. So this is, one more thing. One more thing. I mean, is this decision up to you 6? And what is our best strategy as everyone who opposes this to make this not happen? What do we need to do?
So I will just answer the question because it's come up several times. The property owner has a right to request a variance to the city council, and as long as they follow the appropriate forms and process, these 5 members of city council that are elected officials make the final determination whether to approve a variance or not.
Okay.
And so that's what we're considering tonight. And so as a mayor, I only break ties. They are the ones that are entrusted and have the deep responsibility to make sure that this is fairly, weighed on both sides. And obviously there's been some statements saying where there's some concerns. But if this is not approved tonight, then they could reapply with a different, request. But given the tenor of, the public and the council, there would be obviously considerations that they have to take into account. If it gets approved, then the next step in this would be to work towards the next variance request that would be required, whether it's for lighting, for fencing, for, anything else like the watershed. So this would only be for the impervious cover amount. It does not approve the specific site plan or anything like that. But that just kind of a broad answer is that we're here tonight because the applicant followed all the process, the procedures. They knew that this would be something that has to require a city council to approve, and we're considering it with obviously the weighing of the public input. And now it'll be going up to vote for council to make a determination. And if it's not approved, then this, ends the matter for the current. And of course, they could always reapply. But
And then we could, the same thing can happen when they say, okay, we'll do.
but
one this
again,
one.
I think, given the
Yeah.
circumstances,
Okay, no,
most
just asking.
applicants, take information from your variance request, whether it's approved or not. So, yeah. Hopefully that's helpful. All right, moving on, appreciate everybody keeping in mind the 4-minute limit. And just as a matter of just, reminder, a respectful conversation is always great, and you did a great job. I just want to make sure that we're not doing personal attacks and trying to, do that. I don't want this to be a heated discussion, so we do have, just a obligation to weigh, the facts and the input from the residents. We want to make sure everybody's heard, and we want to make sure it's done in a respectful way. So just as, I appreciate everybody, listening to that and making sure that we're giving due consideration. So, but I'm very excited to see everybody come out for anything, city related. So I really do appreciate all the input that we pursued. And handing off to the city manager for the next.
Next on the list is Joe McCusker, 7 Sunset.
Joe McCusker, 7 Sunset Trail. I was going to speak about, the absolute certainty my house is going to flood again someday. But I'd rather take my 4 minutes, take 2 of them, and say that there was a moment when our requester's representative said, you buy something and then you say, oh, surprise, it's in the floodplain. And I wondered, because it is record that the owner knew that it was in the floodplain when he bought it. So my question would be rhetorical. It would be, did you know that, or is he part of the ruse? Because if you believe that, if you think that it was a surprise to them, then they're lying to you. But it's all part of the disingenuousness of this and kind of the ridiculousness of it. Thanks. I just want to say it's all part of the disingenuousness of this request, and I just want to say don't do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so Ashley Taraborelli submitted a card opposing the variance but does not wish to speak, correct? Okay. Yes, at 15 Sunset Trail, thank you. And Terry Cowan? Oh, we'll go to Melissa Gonzalez.
Melissa Gonzalez, 26 Reese. Y'all all know me. I don't think there's anybody in this room hardly who doesn't know me. And when people come to the neighborhood, I go welcome them. This is what we do. This is a thing that's important to me about Sunset Valley. It's why we all know each other. It's why when floods come, we know we all have each other's back. That is how we are in Sunset Valley. And new people came in. What's Melissa gonna do? She's gonna go wave. She's gonna go say, hi, how you doing? And didn't get too much response. The next day came shortly thereafter, after they were there, and they start cutting down all the trees. And I'm like calling the city. It's like someone is cutting down all the trees. And the city assures me that they've somehow approved all of this, and it's a lot of trees that went down. There were, if you weren't there on that time, they're nodding. And I just couldn't believe that many trees were approved, but I was told they were approved. And, so I go, these aren't my peeps. If you come and you start clear cutting the lot, you're not my peeps. I'm sure that perhaps this architect who was hired after the fact may not know, but the first time that they approved, which hasn't come out yet, they didn't ask to build a house, and all they asked to do was build tennis courts. And they were told that they couldn't. So there's just a whole lot I wanted to add to the story of it being disingenuous. And when people do things like, it's you vote with your feet, you vote with what you do, and we can't fix it later. So if someone's telling you a story that isn't true, they're not going to maintain the vegetative buffer. And the interesting part to me as I was listening to the architect talk is he said that they're going to move in, and then he slid in, and I don't know if you caught that it was for a friend of the family to move in there. I don't know if you caught that. So there's like 2 stories today I mean, it's not even the other times, but that's just right here when their paid representative is saying, did I hear that incorrectly, sir? That it wasn't a friend that was going to move in there? Well, for whatever reason, I heard it. I think other people here heard it. So however that is, I'm listening to a shifting story. You know, I'm listening to people who come here and the first thing you do is start cutting all the trees down. Okay, and you're saying, oh, we care about this. That's not what someone does when they care about the lot. And then the first thing they ask for is only tennis courts. That was the first city request. So none of this story hangs together. I'm worried about the people who care. I'm worried about my neighbors. I'm worried about what happens when we can't get out of that lake. I'm worried. I don't think anybody's going to approve it. I don't think it's going to happen here. But the idea that you could put that kind of a wall up and not have it significantly impact everybody. I called all my neighbors. I called all my neighbors on Sunset Trail. Once I saw that wall, I knew we had to talk about it. And that's just heartbreaking, because I have watched raging rivers go over that lot. And if you don't have video of how bad that is, you need it. There probably is some somewhere. I know that Randy's passed, but Randy had some. The entire lot across the street, pouring, raging. Should never have approved that house. This one, the reason we didn't buy it, you said, why didn't we buy it? Is because a small house, back when it was a $200,000 lot, could have been built. That is why we didn't previously buy this property. People want to keep asking me, so I'm telling you out loud. The reason we didn't previously buy this property, it was still a buildable lot. We could put a small house over by them. They probably wouldn't love it, but we could, and we didn't want to preclude another resident to move to our wonderful community. But this is not what that lot was designed for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Terry.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Terry Cowan. I live at 4500 Stearns Lane. And it's really gratifying to see so many friends and neighbors here tonight. And we've entrusted you all to make sure we keep it. The first thing I want to say is that the critical water quality zone, it's just not a concept. There's a reason for that. People are in danger if they're in the critical water quality zone. People die if they're built in a critical water quality zone, or we've seen what happened around Kerrville. Over 100 people are dead. Never should any development be approved in a critical water quality zone. If anybody on council has done it in the past, you made a mistake. Secondly, you're supposed to decide this based on those 5 criteria. I was sitting, waiting for the arguments to allow you to say, yes, you meet that criteria. Yes, you meet that criteria. For all 5. Clearly, the criteria weren't met. In my opinion, as a past elected official, you don't really have a choice in this. If those 5 criteria aren't met, you have to turn it down. So I feel like there are all these other concerns, but this is really, to me, this is just black and white. This should be turned down based on the process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Burton.
Burton Pearson, 39 Pillow Road. I am on the Planning and Environmental Committee. I'm the vice chair of that committee. I'm also on the Prairie Restoration Subcommittee. Prairies act like sponges and actually mitigate flooding. We're beginning large prairie restoration projects on our open spaces in Sunset Valley, Anyone interested in helping should talk to me about that. This prairies also have biodiversity that rivals that of the rainforest, and it's wonderful to live in that type of environment. So I'll encourage you. We're really working on that for you. Also, I'll have one thing to say about this whole deal. I mean, climate change. You need to let that sink in. These 100-foot or 100-year floodplains, we don't know where those are. We don't know where the 500-year floodplains are. It's going to certainly get worse in the future. At least that's what scientists are telling us. Flooding's going to get worse. Storms are going to get worse. Fires are going to get worse. The biodiversity crisis is going to get worse unless we mitigate as hard as we can right now. We honestly can't afford any more development on open land whatsoever. And I do want to urge the City Council at this point, internally, to make a commitment that we're not going to allow any more impervious cover variances in Sunset Valley, period. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next is Paige Harden, 16 Reese.
Hi, I'm Paige Harden. I'm at 16 Reese. I'm speaking on behalf of myself, my husband Travis, and our 3 children. Many of you don't know me because we're relative newcomers here. We've only been here 3 years, which is a drop in the bucket compared to y'all. And we actually are a young family. We have a 13-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 3-year-old. And we moved here, we did downsize to move here. We did move into an older house to move here. And we moved here because we wanted to be part of a community of people that cared about each other, were honest with one another, and also provided an environment that allowed our children to walk, to bike, to go up and down the street, to visit with their neighbors. I'm not an architect or an engineer. I'm a psychology professor, so I guess my expertise is in people, not buildings. But my husband's an architect for high-end residential architecture here in Austin, and we hope to maybe renovate our house one day. And so we have seen a lot of house renderings for young families, and none of them look like that. None of them have a third of the space dedicated to a weight room and no bedrooms and no kitchen. So I just want to say that I really appreciate this community, and I don't think that this proposal fits any of the criteria for not having negative impact on our flood, on our traffic, quality of life for citizens. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Tom Lednicki and Ann Harkness both oppose the variance but does not wish to speak. Is that correct? Oh, go right ahead.
Mayor, City Council, I'm Tom Lednicki from 15 Reese, and I just wanted to point out that the architect came with us with a plan for nearly 16% impervious cover when clearly he knew what our rules were, and why wouldn't he come to us with less than our requirement rather than more? So that just kind of speaks to their plan, okay? And I just feel very strongly about that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And there were additional comment cards. So yeah, Ann Harkness does not wish to speak but opposes the variance. Rosemary Follis cannot be here, and Liz Wright, both on Reese Drive, opposed the variance. There were 22 last time we counted objections on the Engagement HQ website, and then I also provided a packet of some email and letter comments that we received, so all opposing the variance.
Yeah, and just as a note for those that wrote in, I know that we occasionally receive requests to read aloud comments into the record. We don't do that as a matter of course, but we do make sure that these comments are appended as part of the minutes, so they will be part of the public record with regards to the submissions, and of course all the council members receive the comments as part of the distribution from the city administrator and the city secretary. With that, we will open it up for other members of the public that wish to speak who did not submit a comment card. So if you wish to speak at this time, go ahead and stand up next to the podium, and if you wish to queue, you can do that as well if there's additional people that wish to speak. Again, we're trying to make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak who wants to speak at this time. So.
Hello, Mayor, members of council, staff, fellow neighbors. I'm a newcomer here at Sunset Valley. I've been here for 25 years. I've been in the community for 30, in this neighborhood for 30 years, actually in Sunset Valley for 25, this July actually. I got no less than probably at least a dozen calls today about this issue. I called in, I actually wrote in on an email y'all may have gotten, and I'm wondering and I asked the question rhetorically, I says, is this the rec center or a country club? So, okay. But anyway, I was surprised to learn, well, actually, let me back up here. Listening to the architect, and again, I nothing personally against him, but you know, it sounds like he may have been thrown under the bus, so to somebody else had mentioned, but there just seems to be a lot of inconsistencies in this story. I mean, it just really, things aren't lining up. They're not matching up from what other residents have said, from what he said. It's just not jiving. So, and I didn't know, I wasn't aware, actually, because I mean, that they had cut down all those trees, and yet they want to cut down more. I mean, they want to cut down these heritage oaks and things like that? No. I mean, that's crazy. So anyway, what I wrote here, just real quick. I am opposed to the plan in its current form, and I urge the council to vote not to approve this variance and proposal. Okay. I don't have the map here, but all the trees that they're proposing to knock down, and understand that they were going to plant others 3 and 4 inches. Well, it's nothing like what the heritage oaks are and those large elms, right? Okay, nothing like it. I mean, they were here way before the city was, and I know the lady. I know the people who founded this city. I bought her house. Okay, I don't currently own it, but I bought the house, and she told me. The lady who named this city of Sunset Valley, Ms. Vaughn, she said she wanted to maintain the integrity of a small town, of a horse town, where the kids went to school on their horses, okay? This is back in the 50s and the 60s. And I just don't see this really fitting in with our city. I'm sorry, but I just don't see it. I just don't. I mean, apart from the variance that y'all are going to vote on, I mean, apart from that, it just doesn't jive with what we are here in Sunset Valley. And then I think personally, it's my feeling. You know, when I first saw this, I thought that this was going to be a commercial use property, because that's what it appears. Any reasonable person would seem that this appears to be a commercial use. So there's a commercial nexus. There seems to be a commercial nexus or a commercial regulable activity. And if that's the case, then there are a lot of there's so many questions that need to be answered regarding parking, regarding, noise, lights, I mean, everything like that. More importantly, the flood. So anyway, y'all got the email that I sent y'all. And I would be, I question the integrity of this plan. I question the integrity of what they're actually wanting to do. The story keeps shifting and changing, and I'd say no. I'd say vote against this variance. Yeah.
Thank you. If anybody else wishes to speak at this time, please step up to the podium. All right, what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to council discussion on this item. And council, you can address all the questions to staff or to the architect representing the variance request, or if you just have a general discussion item that you wanted to bring up. So we'll start with Councilmember Rosengarten, and then Councilmember Medicus. I think it's the order.
I'm a realtor. realtors believe in personal property rights. On 9 Reese, I cannot believe a realtor thought this is a property that should be sold again and again. The property has remained in someone's hands since 2017, and then from 2017, it moved from one person to another where they simply made profit off of it. They were flipping the land. I would love to own 2.5 acres in Sunset Valley, but I've driven on that bridge, I've looked down at the land, and I said, my gosh, these poor people who lived here. Because you can see it is going to flood. In 2013, that was October 13th, 2013, and by the way, I brought pictures to show all of you, but staff felt it was not appropriate to show the pictures. A number of houses flooded. I was one of those people who was there helping with cleanup. I was on the end of Reese in one of those 2-story houses that had an open basement on the backside and had all this stuff that they were storing for years. They were artists, and all of that was damaged and ruined. Williamson Creek on the backside flooded. Cougar Creek on the front side flooded. I took videos of how ravaging these floodwaters come through and how quickly. And yes, a timing right now, just to go back and watch a lot of the videos, which I constantly do, from what happened July 4th, July 5th in Kerr County, San Saba area, Liberty Hill, Leander, and I'm going, these folks thought they were on the hill. There is a story I gave to Karen Flournoy. The guy lived it. He talks about they're on stilts. They're on a hill. There is no way any engineer could have said what happened would not have happened. There is no way. There is no one who can predict that a cloud is going to stay in one position and keep dropping and dropping and dropping rain. And then a few days later, more rain comes. How many lives have been lost because nobody could predict this? And it was happening when everybody was sleeping. That can happen here. I have pictures that show when that flood happened, that even though I wasn't in a flood area, my whole back fence, which is a wrought iron fence, very perforated to allow plenty of water to go through, but tree branches, leaves, all start building up on the fence, and then more mulch and so on from our neighbors all collected, and our whole back fence went down. That was expensive, but that was just a fence. It was nobody's lives. The back of my lot, halfway up towards our house, was full of standing water. So when they say that their terraces are going to prevent from flooding, I'm like, how is this possible? My engineer husband, I made sure he looked at everything and gave me any guidance, and he said there is no way. This is blocking the flow of water. So for anybody to think that this is a property that should have impervious cover on, I just don't see it. I don't get it logically. I cannot find on the 5 findings, I cannot see something like this happening. We have talked about this property being purchased before, and we need to talk about this again, because this should not happen again.
Councilmember Medicus?
Well, I'm ready to make a motion, so if you want to keep discussing.
I think we can always have other discussion after the motion is made. So.
Okay. Then I make a motion to deny the variance request under Land Development Code Section 150.323 to not allow development in the critical water zone at number 9 Reese Drive for failure to meet the requirements.
I'll second.
And then do we need to specifically reference not meeting the 5 findings as part of that motion?
I believe that was captured in the motion.
In the motion.
Said not
I
to
said
meet.
requirements, 5 findings.
Not meet the.
All right, so we've got a motion and a
listed.
second. I'm going to open up for other discussion or any other comments that council wants to make. I'll also open up for the public or the representative if they want to speak now that we have a motion on the table. If you've already spoken, of course, I'd prefer letting other people speak if they still have something to say. But Councilmember Johnson.
I meant to write it down on my notes, but if y'all know where Baton Loop is, you know where that is? So it is Baton Loop. It's where the Cherry Creek Community Garden is.
Oh, where Austin bought the land?
So, what's that?
Austin bought the houses?
They bought all that. They bought all the houses because it was flooding. Like, so they got rid of it, and that is, it feels like much higher than nine reasons. But and it seems like Clarmac was originally supposed to connect over to there, like I think a long time ago, because it like points right at it. But anyway, so it's not just our speculation of whatever. Again, we have a fund to buy properties like this. We have done it. There is the one off of Brody, again, another piece of property, 5 acres, under a bridge. It almost like mirrors this property, it's just a little bit smaller. And we're just like, it's gonna flood. So why are we gonna put people on a property that is gonna flood? And so, yeah, I just wanted to like make everyone, that weird loop that looks like it should have houses on it, it did, they dormed down.
Councilmember Rosengarten.
Are the applicants here tonight?
They have a representative here, but my understanding is the applicants are not here. So just the architect, that's part of the representation that's developing the property is here.
Thank you.
Do you have a question for the architect?
Well, I wanted to see if the applicant was here and if the applicant had wanted to defend themselves or back up about the tennis courts. First, they started with one, and then they said no, and that they weren't going to live here if they wanted to address that. Even though that's not on the agenda, we're not supposed to talk about that. We're only supposed to talk about impervious cover tonight. It would be nice to know and give them an opportunity to defend themselves if there was. Thank you.
Other questions or comments from council? Anybody else wish? Oh, Councilmember Rosengarten.
I would like to ask, could we, after all the voting is done, go into an executive session for, say, maybe 10 minutes?
I'll refer to the, yes, for this agenda item, we can consult with legal if it's pertinent to a legal matter, so we can invoke that.
Yeah, it would need to be to consult. It would need to be to consult with the city attorney. So,
yeah. So if that's what you want to do, then we could call for a vote to move into the executive session anytime, but after we complete this item, if that's. Yeah. Would anybody else like to speak at this time before we go into voting? Mayor Pro Tem.
Quick question on procedure here. We are voting to
the motion on the
deny
table
this.
is to deny the variance based on not meeting the findings.
Right, so if we vote aye, we are voting to deny it.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, I wanted to make sure I understood that.
Yeah.
I don't want to get that wrong.
It's happened before.
Good to be clear.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so the motion is the motion made by Councilmember Medicus, seconded by Councilmember Johnson, is to deny the variance based on not meeting the findings. So if you're voting in favor of that, then you're voting to deny the variance. All right. All those in favor of the motion to deny the variance, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Nay. The motion passes, and which means that the variance is not approved, and so that agenda item. And so I just want to thank everybody who provided input, and I also want to thank the representative for the applicant for attending, and of course, follow-up questions with staff are welcome. If there's some things that we can help provide further information or guidance to you or your client on. With that, I think Councilmember Rosengarten, you have a motion you wish to make at this time?
I move that we move into executive session at this time.
Is there a second for that?
Well, you need
and
the,
to consult,
For legal-
I think to
consult with our-
specifically consult the
To consult with legal.
Okay.
It doesn't, don't we have to specify the part of the code?
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, we could. Okay,
Thank you, everyone.
I'll second. I'll second.
Okay.
section
All right, so right now, council, we're going to vote on moving
section
to executive session.
55107.
Chip, we have to vote.
We have to vote on executive session.
All right. So all those in favor of moving to executive session at this time, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so we're going to move into executive session at 8:31, and we'll resume our normal proceedings after we return.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, well, I did the math. Matt said for every square foot, it has to be 2.89 to do vegetation buffer. So okay. Call me. Yeah. Yeah. It's more areas than just Cook County. There's a lot more areas that got affected than just Cook County. Wow. Wow. This story. Yes, that's right. Oh, we're watching the weather and we're not even in it. Yes. Yep. Yep. Yes. Yeah. No, when we first heard 29 lives were lost, you're like, 29, oh my God. And then it keeps growing and you go, what the heck? Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Oh, that is.
said, well, probably 2 years. Anyway, she went through that, and then she has illness. You know what that is? It's, anyway, it's like a big old, yeah. She had really popped up. It got real big. You know, that's a so the surgeon did it removed it. And it I guess it was one of the medicines that she took caused those ones got rolling up. And so the doctor asked one for years it was on the kidney. And they moved it. And it probably didn't have to up there. She lost it. And that was another one. So she had a problem with that. She had some other disease. And she went out on the inspection trying to get all of that. And like I said, there were like 2 different pages out there. Being pretty stable, she's down to she got down to 76. She was so yeah, let's say you would recognize her. I've been doing fine. Keeps you up.
All right. Are we ready to resume? Are we still recording?
Well, I'll talk to you then later. I think it should be
I or nine. All right. We are returning and resuming with, from executive session and resuming with agenda item, our remaining agenda items. Council, we are going to move to agenda item number 16 next because we do have the member representatives from the Yellowstone landscape here, and then we're also going to go to the 17 next because we also have the HR consultant here as well before going back to 15. So I'm going to go ahead and proceed with item number 16, which is presentation of possible action on selecting Yellowstone Landscape as the city's landscaping contractor pursuant to RFP 050720025-A. Hand it over to staff for introduction to this item.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So this, back in May, the city released an RFP for bids for landscape contract services. The city did receive 5 bids. Staff scored those bids, and Yellowstone Landscape was considered the most qualified bidder. We have excuse me. We did have discussions regarding possibly bringing this in-house, but at this time, and the Planning and Environmental Committee did recommend to do in-house staffing, but at this time, the staff and also the Budget and Finance Committee recommend going ahead the next few years. So Yellowstone is here. They would be a new contractor for the city. We did reach out to their references. They worked for the city of Temple and the city of Round Rock and the city of Leander. We did hear back from Round Rock and Temple and got good recommendations from both of those cities on their services. And so we're going to let them do a little short presentation to just introduce themselves to you so that you can know a little bit about them. And this is Emily and Ryan.
Yeah, go
with
right ahead,
Yellowstone.
and you'll just have to speak into the mic. Just make sure that the button's on and the light is green.
Okay.
Hi, good evening. My name is Emily LaFan. I'm with Yellowstone Landscape as a business development manager, and I was part of the team that put together this proposal for you guys.
And I'm Ryan Lawton. I'm an operations manager here at Yellowstone.
We just put together a little PowerPoint just kind of introducing who we are. So Yellowstone Landscape is, we were started in 2008 in Florida and have since spread across the country, really. We're coast to coast now, I think 72 different offices. And we've been here in Austin since 2017 when we began a contract with the city of Round Rock. And they've been our clients since then. We've built since then. You can go to the next slide. And then there's 5 little things that'll fill in there, yeah. These are just our pillars of excellence that we kind of base our business around on a day-to-day basis, that we pride ourselves on. You know, safety is huge for us, of course, customer service, growth in a strategic way, our team, and financial responsibility as well, so that we are servicing our customers in the best way possible. There we are across all the country. And I'll let Ryan talk about some of the services we offer.
Yeah, so the landscape maintenance, we've already mentioned that we do a lot of municipality work, City of Round Rock, City of Temple, so we are very experienced with a lot of municipal work and green spaces like that. So our crews and ourselves are, you know, have the capabilities to take those on. You know, that's a very high foot traffic areas, high, you know, commercial areas that, you know, we have a lot of experience maintaining. So that's super important. You know, we already talked about safety is one of our top priorities. So we really value, you know, keeping our crew members safe and then the residents here safe. So it's very important to us. Landscape installation, we do a lot of plant installs, full installs, irrigation installs, anything that the city would need on that end. We do it all really. So. And then enhancements on top of that, plant installs, you know, everything that we just covered. So we have a lot of different options, masonry work, xeriscaping, anything that the city needs. We do a lot of different stuff with that. We have 2 full-time enhancement crews that do full install work and masonry work, rock install, stuff like that. So irrigation is super important. We have some great irrigation technicians. We can't always rely on the rain that we've gotten recently, so it's super important to have really reliable irrigation. So we have monthly inspections that we send a full report to you guys with pictures and locations where you guys know where the issues are. We can send you a full report and have those repaired very easily. So irrigation is something super important to, you know, the overall health of the turf and the plants. So we take that very seriously. I'll let you go.
Yeah, just some of our clients. I mean, we do kind of do anything, but public sector, we talked about City of Round Rock, City of Leander, City of Temple, City of Austin now as well, and building. So the municipal side is definitely one of our biggest sectors of clients. HOAs and I think there's one more after that. I can't remember which one it was. Commercial properties, yeah, as well, are 2 of our other big clientele as well. But we do retail, we do, you know, healthcare, banks, apartments, a little bit of everything. So. Kind of some benefits for our clients. Single point of contact for any location. Your account manager, you're going to have one person that you guys are in contact with at all times that also runs the crews as well. So they are kind of the go-between on a day-to-day basis. The defined schedules, quality inspections, site audits. We are big on technology to communicate with you guys. So any way that we can do that with those TPEGO irrigation reports, the site audits, all that good stuff. So. Consistency in services?
Yeah, so obviously consistency is super important to us, and really that goes with communication. We want, you know, open line of communication all the time. You know, we really take it as a team effort here at Yellowstone, but we, have a workflow of communication that goes from the top down to the crew level. So we like to keep things organized, but we have a big team that supports with just about everything that we do out here. So consistency in the quality that we have for you guys, consistency in, the way that we are communicating things to you, that's super important to us.
And customized service schedules so that we can really find the right fit for what you need for your sites. It's not just kind of a blanket option, so we can we can tailor it to each site, what that site needs. And then easy access to information, we kind of talked about some of the reporting that we can do and how we can utilize the technology that's available to help us do that in the most efficient and clear way possible so that you guys have a good paper trail to follow as well. Crews in the field trained to use, provider platforms. They're again going back to the irrigation reports, the site audits that the account managers can do, all of that good stuff. So yeah, that's kind of just a quick overview. If you guys have any questions.
Thank you for the overview, and thank you for sticking around while we went through
Sure.
our various. Good introduction to the city at the very least.
Yes, it was
and not to cut
fascinating
down
to
trees.
see.
Yes.
I appreciate that. I also want to just open up for comments or questions from council, since I know landscaping obviously is a very important aspect of maintaining our environments, and that's been one of the things that council's addressed over the course of this, in terms of like, is it better for us to have like sort of more local control by having our own staff performing these tasks, or do we have confidence that that we can entrust this to a service? But I'll start with Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you. Great presentation.
Thanks.
You guys really whooped the other bidders in the scoring. So and then you're like second lowest in the bid. So this is pretty exciting. And also on the side, we did talk about potentially bringing it in-house, and that conversation seemed to have dissolved immediately as soon as it was like these guys. One of our, as you saw with kind of the conversation earlier, what is your access to like Roundup is like the bad guy, but like what is your access to like alternative pesticides?
Yep. So we use a organic chemical called ammonium nonanate. It's approved by the OMRI, the Organic Material Research Institute, so it's an organic chemical. We use that as a non-selective herbicide for your bed maintenance. So not on your turf, but that's kind of our go-to. It's really great chemical that's not super invasive like your glyphosates.
Right. Does it work?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
It does work.
It does for that too. And
So-
the previous landscaping company, I feel like they didn't have quite as much access, but it was just one. But you guys bring more resources to bear.
Sure.
I feel like so.
We have distributors that have a large amount of customizable compounds. So if there's something that the city wants and requests for, for the turf or for the beds, then we can provide that. We can, work with our distributors on that too.
Is that reflected in the bid, or you haven't gotten to that point yet?
Yeah, no, one of the things in the bid documents is basically we don't do chemical treatments. It's more of a last resort.
Yep.
So they knew that was reflected in the bid numbers, is that organics first basically is what we're looking at.
Who does the landscaping in the meadows? Since that is an HOA, would our
This contract covers the entry to the meadows as part of that. Currently it is done. It's done by the city, and it would continue to be done by the city.
entry, but like once you get on.
Once you get onto the actual where the homes begin, that is the the city that had been maintaining the residential right-of-ways, but the residents in the meadows also do their own yards, and we did take the residential right-of-ways. We will not be doing that anymore. So that's
I
coming
noticed.
out.
Yeah. It was like already.
That's coming out of the bid. We won't be maintaining that. That'll be.
I think my landscaper kind of gave me a look. He's just like, why am I doing this? But,
so the right-of-ways we would maintain is Jones Road, ERW, Brody, and those areas that are around, say, like the villas and the meadows that don't belong to any single homeowner. So those areas are still maintained by the city.
Okay. Broken sprinklers, I guess we can now we got the new 311, and eventually, are we gonna rely on them, or is that like something that y'all will do?
So it depends. So we have in the contract price that there's an hourly rate for irrigation repairs. We do a lot of them in-house, so they're going to give us a report that is going to be computer generated with pictures and everything, so it's easy to locate and follow. But then we can also say, hey, we don't have time for these. Can you guys go ahead and fix these things as well? So it's a both.
Yeah, it seems like you don't really know that they're broken until they're actively not working.
Until they're fountaining water
Yeah, which
up
is
in the
like
air.
5 o'clock in the morning
Yeah.
or whatever.
And some of the ones around, we get a lot of calls on the ones over near the meadows that are not actually.
Right, they're the village.
They're part of the village.
Do they know that they are just averaging water? Like, it's like a
Yeah,
river back there.
we call them and
Yeah.
let them know.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Barbara.
I have a question and a comment. The question is, on the residential right-of-way, whose responsibility does that become? Is it the residents, or will the city be picking any of that up?
No, it's going to be it's the residents' responsibility, and actually, it's already written in the city code that way. People are responsible to the curb, basically, is what you're responsible to mow. But there are some people who already mow that. There's some people who may not choose to mow that area on the residential right-of-ways.
Okay. I guess the comment is, my concern was within house was largely a fiscal one of, what's the best use of the city's money. And I think with this proposal coming in, I think it matches or beats, I guess, the estimates of what it would cost to bring the service in-house. So like Councilman Johnson said, it seems like makes it almost a no-brainer, makes it easy. So I'm happy for that.
Yeah.
And I guess, Mayor, would it be appropriate to make